Buonasera. You can sit, I will call you. Buonasera a tutti, vi accomodiamo, ci accomodiamo. Grazie di essere al Castello di Rivoli. Vorrei passare la parola alla Presidente Francesca Lavazza.
Grazie Caroline, buonasera a tutti, benvenuti. È davvero un piacere per me stasera avervi qua e poter così aprire le porte in questa nuova occasione, di questa apertura e inaugurazione. Devo dire che, come si dice sempre, non c'è due senza tre. In questo caso siamo ancora più contenti e orgogliosi di poter raccontare, di poter accogliere la terza mostra di Olafur Eliasson qui al Castello, e questo è molto importante perché la prima mostra è stata inaugurata proprio nel 1999. Come curatrice c'era Marcella Beccaria, in questo caso colgo l'occasione per ringraziarla nuovamente. Grazie Marcella, vorrei un applauso per lei. Devo dire un percorso straordinario, e questo segna molto e in qualche modo anche sottolinea l'importanza, e sottolinea anche la passione, ma soprattutto anche la capacità di lavorare con un artista in modo così intenso e puntuale, anche perché la vita di un artista e la carriera di un artista ovviamente ha un'evoluzione importante, un'evoluzione prospettica, e quando accanto a te hai una curatrice che in qualche modo ti aiuta, ti supporta e ha la capacità proprio di rappresentare così i momenti più importanti del tuo percorso, devo dire che è veramente un'unicità. E in questo caso Marcella appunto ha curato proprio qui nel 1999 la sua prima mostra al di fuori della Scandinavia, per cui davvero un evento importante, più di 23 anni fa, e le tematiche erano tematiche che in questo momento sono ancora più attuali, per cui davvero una lungimiranza e un coraggio, una visione che ovviamente in questa sede, in questo contesto venivano in qualche modo enfatizzate. Nuovamente nel 2008 il Castello ha ospitato un'altra sua mostra proprio in occasione della Triennale d'Arte, per cui è con grande piacere che questa sera nuovamente abbiamo la possibilità di vedere un nuovo progetto, un nuovo lavoro, di vedere e non vedere, perché vedrete che la parte che più vi colpirà ovviamente è l'assenza di luce, quindi un percorso che è assolutamente immersivo, intuitivo, personale. Io spero veramente che alla fine di questo percorso immersivo, in questa nuova visione, in questa nuova volontà di mettere di nuovo in scena, in un luogo reale, in un luogo che è anche metafisico, un nuovo percorso. Ognuno di voi troverà la propria personale luce. Luce che dovrà essere in connessione con tutto quello che accade all'esterno, luce che come solo un artista di questo calibro ha la capacità proprio di porci di fronte a una serie di interrogativi importanti, interrogativi pressanti, interrogativi che in qualche modo, grazie proprio alla sua ricerca, hanno sempre delle risoluzioni e delle risposte. Risposte che però ognuno deve fare proprie e in qualche modo interpretare. Per cui questa sera è veramente con piacere che vi lascio a questo nuovo percorso, a questa nuova mostra. Vi auguro buona serata, buona visita, e come al solito è un piacere poter accogliervi tutti quanti qui. Grazie mille. Ancora un attimo per ringraziare ovviamente la direttrice Caroline, che come sempre non è solo la grande guida, ma la padrona di casa. In questo caso condividiamo insieme questo momento, ma ovviamente un enorme ringraziamento a lei, ovviamente a tutto il dipartimento curatoriale e a tutti quelli che questa sera hanno reso possibile e vi renderanno possibile questa serata che mi auguro davvero unica. Grazie.
Grazie Presidente. Desidero ricordarvi che i programmi del Castello di Rivoli sono realizzati primariamente grazie al contributo della Regione Piemonte, e pertanto desidero chiamare a dire due parole la dottoressa Tittone, che rappresenta la Regione Piemonte.
Buonasera direttore, buonasera Presidente, ringrazio per l'invito. Porgo i saluti dell'assessore Vittoria Poggio alla cultura e al commercio della Regione Piemonte. Effettivamente così la Regione attraverso la compagine di governance segue da vicino, da lontano, da tutti i punti di vista il Castello di Rivoli, guarda con attenzione e cogliamo l'occasione per ringraziare l'operato del direttore e della Presidente Presidente, attuali per quello che è un percorso mai scontato all'interno della compagine della curatela, della promozione dell'arte contemporanea in Piemonte, in Italia, all'estero, all'interno di un ruolo non facile, quello appunto dell'arte contemporanea, e di una attività di ricerca interna al museo stesso rispetto a quelli che sono già di per sé i ruoli tipici del museo, quelli della promozione, della divulgazione, di poter spiegare ma anche innovare nell'ambito di un comparto che già di per sé è innovazione, ricerca, sperimentazione, rispetto anche all'attenzione rivolta al mondo degli artisti, della residenzialità, della mobilità internazionale. Queste sono tutte tematiche che ruotano intorno all'operato di Rivoli. Quindi per noi un'istituzione importante all'interno dello scenario piemontese che con domani parte con una attività fiorente in ambito di arte contemporanea, ovviamente con ruoli, funzioni e scenari diversi rispetto a quello che l'arte contemporanea può rappresentare anche in termini di mercato e comunque di attrattiva e di vitalità sul territorio piemontese. Pertanto mi limito a questo ruolo più istituzionale per non entrare nel merito di una mostra che spero sia veramente di richiamo e colga l'apprezzamento del pubblico locale e internazionale per un autore che viene qui in Piemonte per la terza volta e spero potrà avere altre occasioni prossime e future di incontro e di scambio. Quindi un in bocca al lupo all'iniziativa e un ringraziamento a tutti.
Grazie mille. Il Castello di Rivoli è molto anche dedicato alla costituzione del patrimonio culturale per il futuro e quindi la collezione permanente è molto anche importante per noi. Abbiamo il piacere di già avere 2 opere importanti di Olafur Eliasson in collezione, Your Circumspection Disclosed e The Sun Has No Money. E abbiamo, come sapete, un progetto in corso con la Fondazione CRT per l'arte moderna e contemporanea di acquisizione di opere in sinergia con la programmazione del Castello di Rivoli. Inoltre il nostro programma è reso possibile dal sostegno della Fondazione CRT e quindi colgo l'occasione per invitare il dottor Lapucci, segretario generale della Fondazione.
Grazie Caroline. Ma innanzitutto grazie per l'invito, è un vero piacere essere qua. It's a great pleasure to be here in the presence of such a great artist like you, Olafur. Thank you very much. Grazie per aver ricordato anche l'impegno della Fondazione e in effetti la prima opera che con te poi con il comitato abbiamo voluto acquistare ovviamente per il castello è stata proprio The Sun Has No Money, credo 2008, se ricordo bene, poi io non c'ero ma insomma ricordo quello che ho letto, ma devo dire che per me lui è un po' anche il simbolo di quello che io almeno sto vivendo come evoluzione. Sono un appassionato, non appartengo al mondo dell'arte, e quindi però questa evoluzione che l'arte ha anche verso altre discipline come la tecnologia, quello che un po' ci divertiamo a chiamare anche alle OGR come art technology, sicuramente lui trasmette un'emozione molto forte nelle sue opere. Questa è una mostra che io ho visto rapidamente, ma è veramente di grande impatto, bellissima. E un po' anche il titolo, questo Trembling Horizon, dà un po' l'idea proprio di questi tempi un po' incerti che viviamo, senza precedenti probabilmente, e anche un'incertezza che deriva e che però in qualche maniera, almeno questo è il messaggio che percepisco, ci guida anche verso quelle che sono poi le milestone forse più significative, verso l'inclusione, verso un senso di giustizia che comunque dobbiamo ricercare. Dunque è una grande emozione essere qui oggi per questo opening e vi ringrazio. Noi cerchiamo ovviamente di essere sempre vicino come Fondazione CRT al mondo dell'arte e della cultura. Porto i saluti anche del Presidente Quaglia che stasera non è potuto essere qui e vi ringrazio.
Bene, ci avviciniamo al momento interessante della conversazione, ma vorrei aggiungere ancora due ringraziamenti. Le attività del Castello di Rivoli sono anche sostenute dalla Fondazione Compagnia di San Paolo e dalla Fondazione Compagnia di San Paolo, ecco. E inoltre siamo partner, sono partner anche Intesa San Paolo Gallerie d'Italia. Abbiamo adesso un'altra opera di Olafur Eliasson esposta in Piemonte, che è nel programma a cielo aperto realizzato con la Fondazione CRC. Ringrazio il Presidente di essere qui questa sera, il Presence of Absence Pavilion, che si trova nei giardini del Castello Grinzane Cavour. Quindi Olafur Eliasson è un po' ovunque per noi. Ma per quanto riguarda questa mostra in particolare, desidero anche ringraziare gli amici del Castello di Rivoli che sempre aiutano per la realizzazione delle mostre e delle nostre attività. In particolare in questo caso Gianfranco D'Amato, che spero sia qui o arriverà questa sera, e Andrea Ruben Levi. Inoltre hanno sostenuto alcune parti Roberta Cereto e Paolo Merlo. Quindi spero di non avere dimenticato nessuno. Ribadisco anch'io i ringraziamenti al curatore Marcella Beccaria, a tutto il team che ha aiutato Marcella per realizzare, a Chiara Bertola, Head of our Installation and Collections and Exhibition Organization, e quindi soprattutto vorrei ringraziare Olafur perché è un uomo impegnato su molti fronti, impegnato nell'arte, impegnato anche sul fronte della presa di coscienza ecologica della nostra crisi climatica. Vi potreste chiedere: ma cosa c'entra una mostra di colori e di luce? Sembra di entrare nello studio di un Goethe o di un Newton che studia l'ottica, e con questo impegno ecologico, con questa consapevolezza dell'acqua, degli ghiacciai che si sciolgono, in realtà più arido è il mondo e più secco è il mondo e meno c'è da vedere. E siccome lui vorrebbe che noi vedessimo sempre di più e che vedessimo l'invisibile, le due cose sono strettamente collegate. So, invito Olafur, would you like to come join us here with Marcella and conduct a conversation which will be in English, if I understand correctly? Okay.
Thank you. It's in English because I don't speak Italian. That's why.
Yes, that's the only reason. But you gave us an Italian title, For Olafur, it's very important that every time he has an exhibition, actually the title can speak immediately to the people of the place and from the place. So we are actually using the title Trembling Horizons, and the conversation is in English. But Olafur actually's title is in Italian, Orizzonti, tremanti. I said it well.
Did very well, yes. Thank you so much.
A very good Italian accent. Olafur, of course, is an artist. First of all, welcome everybody to this little conversation. Thank you very much to Francesca Lavazza, to the amazing support that she has been giving to the museum. Thank you to our director, Caroline Christo-Baccargiev, for making this exhibition possible. Thank you, of course, to Olafur and to your wonderful team, Caroline Egel, and the wonderful team from Berlin that has become like our best friends for a very long time. And thank you to my colleagues that made this exhibition possible. I have a very long biography of yours to read. Maybe I should skip it, imagine.
I think so.
I think so, okay. So skipping the biography, I guess half of the talk is done.
Yeah.
But the only thing that we wanted to mention, of course, it's true when I say that Olafur is an artist that doesn't need any presentation, because if you will have the time tonight in our library, on the occasion also of a collaboration with our research center, and thanks also to the collaboration of the Studio Eliasson, we have gathered basically all the monographs and the books that talk about Olafur, at least the solo exhibition catalogs and monographs, and they are about 100. So in the library you have a number of tables covered, literally filled with all these catalogs, and it's an amazing journey that goes from the beginning of the 90s until the present. And it continues, and we are very proud to be part of this journey as Castello di Rivoli. True part of the work is fundamental. And many other ideas, such as the fact that the reality, what we call reality, what we think is reality, it's mainly a cultural construction. And concepts like seeing yourself seen, thinking that works are machines out of which we can actually become more aware of the huge amount of cultural constructions that we live in, and somehow our brains are trained to think. These things were there in a way since the very early days, as many people here in this theater tonight know. They were there since the very beginning, and Olafur has been testing, literally, and experimenting and working very, very hard, I have to say. If there is one thing that Olafur also for this exhibition has been, of course, involving us and showing us, even the tests, accepting the failure, the fact that an artist tries and works and eventually, of course, in his case especially, will succeed. But that road to success, it's not only amazing inspiration, but is also actually the outcome of an amazing work that you have been continuously doing throughout time and throughout the years. So instead of reading your bio, I guess Please. I already made a mess. But what I wanted to actually start with was our last conversation. Throughout the years, we had many conversations. I really had the privilege also to write a book about Olafur's work in 2013. And that was the occasion also to continue a conversation that started before and still is going on. But today at lunch, because we always like the very last thing that we do, today at lunch we spoke actually about something that eventually we thought could have been an interesting entry point to our conversation for tonight.
Yes, but before you start, Marcella, can I also just join the formal part of the program so it's over with, to thank for having me here, to the sponsors, to the museum team and my studio team, and to you, Marcella. She was the curator at the show. I'm sure it's been said now 5 times in Italian in 1999, and she was 12 and I was 22. And but it was really special because it was my first show, which I'm sure also was said, so I won't say it anymore, but it's nice to be back, right? This is like 10 years later. So having said that, I also want to say that it was mentioned that there is a lot of books on the library, and I was very touched to see the effort the museum has gone through, and I also want to thank for that, to collect all these books. I mean, they called my studio and we sent them, but no, that's not true. So our library is a part of a scientific project, and I just briefly want to mention the value of a rigorous museum who works with science of art. It is not the same everywhere, and museums are going through a number of different sort of phases. In a lot of places, museums are suffering a lot, and typically the ones who suffer are the ones who spend money on science. And that means a lot of museums have not enjoyed the luxury of working scientifically very rigorous. So as an artist, I want to say I'm particularly proud to be in a museum which holds up the science of art and the seriousness of art very high. And the reason why it's important to mention is that it seems to be more and more important for politicians, our friends here tonight as well, that there is not enough visitors. But in science, it's not necessarily about, so I'm almost afraid of saying it, success in art is not quantifiable in the amount of visitors. And I know this is, we all know this and so on and so forth, but we just often also forget that if it's not the visitors, who's then going to pay for it and how are we going to justify it? But as an artist, let me just say, I would like to wholeheartedly justify the museums who works on the science as a core of it. And I thank you for being a part of that when I'm here. That's important to say, I think.
Thank you, Olafur.
Now we can start.
Thank you for sharing your vision about museums as places in which research and work are indeed at the core of what we do, at the basis of our mission. And the word mission maybe is interesting. If we maybe could start and actually share with the audience the image actually we were talking about today.
Take a picture.
We are looking at an image that I imagine many of you know. It's not a piece by Olafur Eliasson, but somehow maybe it could be. And why am I saying that? And why do we talk about this today? Because this is an image, actually, can I say this? Is almost as old, it's basically our own age. It was taken in December, almost at Christmas Eve, 1968. So years in which political unrest and many, of course, revolutions were taking place. And it's the first image that a human being ever took of the earth. It's a fascinating image. The horizon line that you see, it's actually the surface of the moon. And this image is, in a way, the image through which mankind, or humankind, took an understanding of the fact that we are somewhere, we are in space, and we could actually see ourselves from elsewhere. So today we kind of debated about this role and this image in relation to Olafur's art and to his idea, as I was saying before, that what to him seems to be very important, and maybe I'm mistaken, I don't know, maybe you want to say something different. But when I say that I think that your work has opened up a different understanding of art as a machine out of which we as visitors can indeed see ourselves seeing or sense ourselves sensing.
Yes. It's beautiful. When it came out, it was Apollo 8, the journey to the moon, the famous one, of course. When it came out, it was on Christmas Eve. Yeah? And so everyone was sitting home and eating their turkey. And imagine at the time there was the height of the Cold War. And for the first time, the Cold War seemed small. Because we were all on this, the humankind was on this small planet. And it was seen as the kind of a new beginning of empathy. The fact that we were able to see in terms of introspection, we could see our own planet on which we lived. And it's so small and so fragile and so beautiful, of course. This picture has come up more and more lately, the last 10 years. The first time it really was shown a lot was when Al Gore did his movie, Inconvenient Truth. And then it's been used more and more because it marked a point where we could say that we started, the consciousness of the planet as an ecosystem in a new way. Only 4 years later, the ozone layer hole was united by many, many countries. They fixed the ozone layer. It was in 73 or 4, I don't remember. And I think that picture had something to do with it. But the reason why it's been coming up lately is it was also the success of the utopia, humankind. We can do anything. We are fantastic. And it was the monumental for human exceptionalism. Do you understand? It's like exception. Yeah, your English is. So exceptionalism, of course, in the last 10 years has been questioned. Maybe we humans, last 20 or 30, we humans are not so exceptional because we are looking at the horizon trembling, but we are not looking down. And underneath our feet, the earth is collapsing. The earth is sliding away. And this image has been used as so maybe the end of the era where we believed in the future by the progress, industrialization, modernization. And now we have a number of different sort of situations where we have a crisis of crisis, which is called the climate crisis, which many, many small crises together. There's not one answer. There's not one point on the horizon, not one vanishing point. It's not like the Renaissance anymore. We have a plural crisis, a system, right? And my mentor and late Bruno Latour, a philosopher who died only 3 weeks ago, his second most recent book was called Down to Earth. And he presented to us a critique of this idea of vision as being something where we zoom out. We know how we say, I need to zoom out so I get a bigger perspective. And Latour and many others today, especially young people, say we don't need bigger perspective, we need smaller perspective. We need to re-see, we need to see again. That's why he says, don't look to the horizon, look down, look around. Under your feet, the earth is collapsing. And the last thing I would say that is, what we are doing, of course, is we are keeping our society and the life quality up, and we are borrowing the resources from the future. So our children or grandchildren, it's not the grandchildren anymore, right? Our grandchildren, they are paying the debt that we are creating. So I find this interesting, and the picture here in that way is both incredibly beautiful, and what a success. But it's also kind of the end of an era where we took from the planet more than we gave back. So the looking down on the horizon trembling, the instability is, I think, an interesting argument. And we talked about that. Mm-hmm. How do we feel our own presence? And the exhibition, as you hopefully will see, has to do with how do we see again? I called it reworlding today. Reworlding. I think it's kind of nice. Maybe we should change the title. Is it too late?
No, it's okay.
No. But but before I just kind of go out of this path, as I've done so often before, you hear where I'm coming from, and we are discovering new things like Stefano Mancuso, the trees. It's interesting, right? So he says that with 6 billion trees, there's less than a tree per person on the earth. In a paper he just made, 6 billion trees, we could counterbalance the sort of climate crisis. So Stefano Mancuso is the famous Italian biologist who did the tree book. And there's the mushroom book, there's the tree book, and he's world famous now from Bologna and Florence, I think. 6 billion trees. The price of 6 billion trees is 3 months of COVID crisis. I know the land, it's a lot of forest, right? Europe and many places in the world, the agro culture is collapsing. There's his argument. Under our feet, it's trembling. And food is being produced in other ways. The sort of agro that EU is keeping alive, and I'm a big supporter of EU, but the agro finance is a complex thing. Anyway, let me stop here. But you understand what I'm saying. There is lots of people who's trying to re-see, and in Italy it's just because Stefano Mancuso is one. But everywhere, and people are saying, what are you talking about? 6 billion trees is impossible. But you know, we don't really have a choice.
And what can be the role of art in such a complex situation?
Yeah. So,
this is a very big question, of course.
I can say what I just said. So I don't think art has one big role. I think art is a part of a part of life, and art is a part of culture, and culture is a part of society. And society needs to be able to look at itself. We have a private sector which is professionalized for profitability, optimization of profit. Okay, then we take a little bit climate or social corporate responsibility, a little bit. The private sector is doing okay, but not good enough. Then we have the public sector, we have the politicians. They also have to sort of balance out the voters, long-termism, short-termism. Short-termism, populism, right? Long-termism is difficult to understand, 100 years. So the cultural sector is a different sector. Italy almost invented the cultural sector. There's more museums in Italy than Germany and France together. So if we think about it, the cultural sector, there's one artist in a system, like I'm in the museum. The museums is in an institutional network. The institutional network is in the cultural sector. The cultural sector is in society. The cultural sector has more, according to an EU study that Deloitte did for EU 5 years ago now, there's more employment in the cultural sector than there is in the car industry. It's interesting, right? The return of investment on public money, according to Mariana Mazzucato from the London University College of London, UCL, right? Debunking the public, about public investment. The return on investment in culture, and this is the music, theater, everything, and literature, everything, is higher than trying to rescue the country in a financial crisis. More money went into the car industry than into culture. Culture was closed. All the papers, they fired the journalists who wrote about culture. Right? Now they're freelancing without a pension. So there is a misunderstanding what can art do as if it has no value. It's incredibly valuable, but we need scientific in art. We need quality in art, and we need art. We need to understand art is not going to the shopping mall. Art is not the Renascente. Art is hard work. It can, sometimes it's beautiful, sometimes it's not so beautiful. Sometimes it's painful, and so on. And this is what culture does. And what does it teach us? Maybe to re-see, or to see ourselves, or look in, or look out. It's slow. It takes time. You come again, maybe. It's not like we have something also new, which is activism, right? Social unrest, social disobedience, which I like very much, because it's not work. It is not adding up with the climate. So we have now more and more, we will see more and more social disobedience, for sure. Extinction Rebellion, people showing tomato shoot on the Van Gogh, which I don't like. But people gluing their hand to a painting, right? I like that, because I understand. I don't think you should ruin art, of course. See, now activism is fast, addresses a topic, spectacular. Art is not like that. Art is slow. It can be activistic also, but art is kind of considerate, maybe contemplative. But what Latour said about not looking always to the horizon of modernity, the earth does not have the capacity to pay for modernity anymore. Look down, and of course he sees like, be present to the responsibility you have. It's difficult to look down, right? Because you don't see much, you only see like this area here. But art, I think, can make you comfortable with what is under my feet. Maybe it's actually quite beautiful. It looks like stones or dirt or something. And maybe some people are more used to looking up. To God, right? That's not. I won't go there today. But so I think, if you just allow me 1 second to go, when you are re-seeing, sometimes, and it's not all the time, you have a work of art or a book, right? You read the book or you look at the artwork and you say, I know that feeling. That's me in the book. I would have done the same. I mean, I didn't think about it, but I would have done the same. Or you have this sort of theater on the stage, right? You go like, I totally get it. That's me. And it is as if the theater play is playing out your not yet articulated emotional need or the painting, you know. It's as if the painting is listening to you. So the idea of re-seeing is also about feeling seen. It's not just I have to re-see the world. I have to feel that the world sees me back. We have to reconsider, am I being recognized? Do I have value? Should I even vote? Who cares what I vote, right? I have no place in society. I'm marginalized, become a yellow vest, I just do, so I lose confidence in the public sort of system, right? That's where culture, again, we can host, I think, in culture spaces that used to be parliaments, where being different is an asset, it's good. I mean, parliaments, I take that back. I think parliament, you know, the forum, the agora, this idea of being together but not being the same. At the museum, I can bring someone and they say, oh, I don't like it. I say, I really like it. And we can still be friends. In football, so I like this team, I like this. Oh, you do? I hate you then. It was like, it makes no sense. So what culture can offer is togetherness without having, you know, sometimes a conflict is okay. You just do not have to kill each other, right? So culture has this, I think, opportunity, and this is where to re-see is also feeling listened to. And art sometimes listens to us, right? And you leave the museum going, good enough. Mm-hmm. I'm worth, you know, I went to the museum not to see art, but the art saw me. And this is why I think this idea of the spectator.
Maybe I'll stop you here. The art saw me. So some of you have experienced, I guess, the exhibition already, and maybe others have not. Either way.
Thank you for stopping me.
The works indeed are
very comfortable here.
Seeing us, right? For the exhibition, Olafur has created, as I said before, all new works. 6 of them are called kaleidoramas, and kaleidorama is a word that Olafur has invented in a way, of course taking the words kaleidoscope and panorama. And in their own term, kaleidoscope, we know, comes from ancient Greek, from kalos, eidos, and skopeo, that means to see beautiful figures. And if I'm not mistaken, it was actually a word that was in itself invented by a British physicist in the 1800s, that is the inventor of the kaleidoscope.
Yes, that's true.
And you have been combining the word kaleidoscope with panorama. So the kaleidorama are machines, once more, machines that are made out of a number of elements. Water is part of them. Mirrors are part of them. And what happens when we are inside are, of course, many different things. And according, I guess, to our own perception, our own movement, our own bodies, and the way we move, we can be on our own in the works, as we have been noticing throughout the days. And in one moment, if a friend joins or a person that we don't know joins, all of a sudden, from one singularity, it becomes a multiplicity. So this is a very powerful concept that, in a tangible way, I guess, addresses many of the things that you've been saying about the fact that art is indeed a place of inclusion. And inclusion doesn't mean that everything becomes the same or everybody becomes the same. Everybody keeps true to their own identity. And it's a very amazing concept to somehow be, able to inhabit a work of art, and at the same time that work of art speaks back to each one of the visitors. So this is one of the things that I guess we could say that happen, when one walks in one of the kaleidoramas. And one of the images that we are seeing here at the moment is actually, in particular, coming from your Power Kaleidorama, one of the new works that are indeed in the galleries. One of the things that I guess I wanted to mention as well, that of course is not obvious from this image, is that you have been working in this case with water. Somehow water in these artworks is a sort of co-agent that works together with the entire apparatus that you have created. And the images that you obtain, are, of course, images that in a way are abstract, but at the same time, they are indeed waves. And waves have been one of the things actually that in the years you have been working with a very deep level of intention. And maybe could you share where does it come, this interest towards waves and their possible role in our understanding of reality?
Yeah, I often worked with things that people know from home or from, going to the beach. So I like water, air, ice, because people go like, it's water. And I like this as I could have done this at home in my garage. And so this sort of familiarity, I like that people sort of say, this is not difficult to understand. It can even be a little bit democratizing when people who are not so interested in art, they say, this is not so difficult to understand. And then they can focus on not the machine, not the sculpture, but on the phenomena and the relationship the sculpture creates with you. So sometimes I refer to machines or objects. It looks like a piece from a satellite, maybe from the James Webb telescope now recently, or maybe some of it looks like nautical instruments that we use to not get lost. So we humans have made so many instruments to not get lost. Microscopes, telescopes, all kinds of scientific sort of instruments, and still we're lost with the planet. Anyway, so when you see the exhibition, you see they're kind of stuck onto the wall. See, it's like sitting on the wall. So it doesn't really look like a sculpture. So it looks even more like something practical just hanging on the wall. But inside is very beautiful. These lines, they move, and it's sort of white light that breaks into colors made with some leftover glass I had. So water, I think, also is sort of, once you see a reflection of the surface, you realize, the water. Yeah, water is really beautiful, even though we take it for granted. And there's not, water is of course a big topic, but it is fundamentally ephemera. We know a liter of water, but it's very hard to sort of solidify the experience of water. It's like the experience of the air, or the experience of humidity or temperature. We can measure it, of course, but our relationship with water, we are largely speaking made of water, as what we learn in the school. But this notion of actually having something in front of you that is almost difficult to understand, and we know it from everyday life. I'm very interested in that. I guess I could also refer to the dematerialization of the objecthood in art. But there's so many artists who talks about this also, right? Maybe showing something which is immaterial has a stronger celebration of the person being present. If it's just stuff like temperature, water, the physical presence of a body becomes more the sculpture. So the artworks or the sculptures or the machines, maybe they are seeing devices used to re-see. It's not really art anyway, right? The artwork is the relationship that we have with the art. So I would like to still insist on this phenomenological argument that it is how we are touched, and it is how we touch each other and the world and art. That is the artwork. It's the consequences of what is happening that is creative. What is happening is physics or science, etc. So the experience, I think, is the reason why I focused on water. Water is still available. So as an art student, it was easy to get You spoke about reality is relative. In my lifetime, water has changed a lot. The value of water has changed a lot. The new gold and so on. But this notion of reality being relative, I think, is also about who dares to believe in that. I'll stop there. Yeah, who dares to believe in the reality is relative? And for a lot of people, it's not, because they might not have the luxury of changing their own life if they are stuck in a refugee camp, for instance. But for a lot of people, reality is relative, and now I will say it anyway. I almost stopped. Now, for a lot of people, honestly, we being in Western Europe, right in the heart of Western Europe, Italy, Renaissance, we often take it for granted that our world is not a social construct. Our world, the Western world, is the truth. It's the best world of all worlds. But only across the ocean southwards, there is another world, right? And that is predominantly not doing very well. But it's not our problem, right? So our construct is that that's not the real world. And we talk about expanding Europe, teaching the world. And of course, that comes from colonization. Right? So if we look not so far back, we have to acknowledge also the way we see the world is very much our own cultural construction. It's not necessarily reality. And there's many other realities. And I say this because I, as an artist, I talk about dematerialization and so on. But I say that as a white, Western European, educated with a strong presence of the church in my education. I speak from that platform. But I also acknowledge nowadays, and this is in my lifetime, this has changed completely. I cannot say we, because there are many other we's, right?
When you mention the, let's say, immaterial aspect of your work, that of course it's a very important one, yet at the same time, your work can sometimes be very tangible. If we get to the end of the Manica Lunga, you intentionally placed at the very end of the journey of the visitors another new piece that is your non-human friend and navigator. And this piece is one of the works in whose, of course, aspects include a very tangible presence in a way of the most simple material of all, a material that has accompanied humankind since the very beginning, that is wood. And in this case, the work is made with driftwood. And driftwood has been something that I guess since at least 2008, maybe even earlier, I think, has become part of your practice.
And it drifts in water. It has to do with water again.
Yes,
drifting.
Exactly. And so maybe not to keep everybody away from the exhibition and make
it still goes 2 hours.
This talk very long. I guess we could end up just, with you maybe sharing the story of your interest and, what are these driftwoods that you have been using and how you have been encountering them and what is the very long geography that they describe around the world, that is the geography not only of motion, but of course also of intention, of use, of this complex relation that we have to the planet we actually live in.
Yeah, it's funny because it's trees, water, it sort of brings everything. But so the exhibition is a long space, as you know, probably most of you. And when you come in, like on a map, there is a navigation star, like a compass star, so you don't get lost. Then you go through the exhibition, and at the other end, there is a compass. It's a magnet, and it's north-south. So when you stand under the compass, you can see, oh, if this is north, this means that, Florence, where you will go tomorrow to see the other show, is this way. Ukraine is this way, right? Iceland is over here. And Mama is this way, right? So it's interesting to be inside a white box, which historically has isolated itself, and to be able to look out by your imagination of the compass and the magnetism and the gravity and so on. And the driftwood, typically in Iceland, where this is from, they fall into the ocean north of Russia, the rivers, the wooden industry. They go into the polar sea, and they go summer, winter, summer, winter. So it takes about 15 to 20 years. Some of it comes to Iceland on the north coast. And the farmers, they collect and they make many things from it, right? In the past. Some goes to East Greenland, some goes all the way to Newfoundland and Canada, and Martha's Vineyard, Maine, Martha's Vineyard, all the way down to Florida, some goes. And then the Gulf Stream, it brings it all the way back up to south coast of Iceland. This is north coasters. The south coasters are very, very rare. So there's the kind of the ocean, how they draw. So these driftwoods, they're kind of like drifting. They look like the way they look because they've been in the ice for so long. It's a fascinating story about being lost and drifting and finding land, being found. And they are still sailing. And I call it your non-human friend. We have now the rights of personhood. And we have Timothy Morton, Graham Harman, Donna Haraway, right? The philosophers and thinkers who are working in the ecology, the children of Bruno Latour, somehow. They say more than human. Plants and species, the commons, the oceans, the wind and air. The rights of personhood. This is another long talk, but this is your friend, is your cousin, the tree, long distance, Eventually, this idea of everything is traveling, eventually we will recognize a museum is not a place where things stand still. They don't necessarily even slow down. Maybe they speed up. The intensity is very high. Right? So this notion of we don't put things in the museums to stop time. We put things in museum to see time, to experience time. And that's all the works is about that, to re-see. So I can say, of course, a lot about anything and many things. I think I want to thank you also. You're always so patient. It's so nice to sit and listen to you. Thank you so much, Marcella. It's been an amazing friendship all those years. I want to say one practical thing. In the store, is this sold in the store? Oh my God, they're so good here. They might be chaotic, but they're very good. This is a solar panel. I've done this often, right? I'm sorry. You heard it wrong. This is the sun. This was charged in Berlin. So this is the sun in Berlin. I'm sorry. Italian. Right? 5 hours. 5 hours. No petrol. Recyclable plastic. Okay, a little bit of petrol. Much more petrol saved. And now there's 2 million of them in sub-Saharan Africa. And we have 10 years anniversary. So it's been going well. It's sort of plateauing. But we are doing well still. So when you go, you buy because it's November, December, Christmas. Conscious consumer. And I recommend you can also buy them online. But it's a nice little gift both to old people who will then give them to young people. Because this is very much about the future, as I talked about.
Yeah, so
thank you so much.
I guess many people know, but for the few ones that maybe haven't encountered Little Sun yet, Little Sun is an amazing, endless edition of artworks that was invented by Olafur together with an engineer, right? And the idea of Little Sun at the very beginning is that every time we buy a Little Sun, we, let's say here, maybe today in the museum.
We subsidize.
The company that Olafur has founded, that is the Little Sun Company, will be able to distribute more Little Sun in other parts of the world, especially the off-grid parts of the world. And so Little Sun can provide access to light that also electrical light we often give for granted, but for many people in the world actually is not. So we also mentioned time, and I think we hold you a lot here. We thank you very, very much. It has been really a pleasure, and I hope now everybody can actually go and experience Olafur exhibition. Maybe, I'm sure there are tons of questions and comments, because at least to me, every time I hear you speaking, is always very inspirational. So I don't know if there is any urgent question that anybody would like to share.
Thank you.
If there is not,
No.
I guess they are afraid of us keeping on talking.
Thank you so much,
very
Ellen.
much.
Thank you.
Grazie Olafur. Lunga.